Slaughter in the Hills, the Manson family murders, and the madness of Charles Manson. In the sweltering summer of 1969, as the age of Aquarius bloomed with flower power and psychedelic dreams, darkness took root in the hills of Los Angeles. What unfolded was a series of murders so grotesque and senseless that they would shock the nation and mark the symbolic end of the 1960s countercultural innocence. At the center of the carnage was the failed musician and self-proclaimed prophet named Charles Manson. Surrounding him was a devoted group of young followers known as the Family, a commune-like cult whose members were willing to kill at his command. Charles Manson, born in 1934 to a troubled upbringing, spent much of his early life in and out of prison. Upon his release in 1967, he landed in San Francisco, just as the city's Haight-Ashbury district was becoming the epicenter of the counterculture movement. With a messianic personality and an uncanny ability to manipulate vulnerable minds, Manson began attracting followers, mostly young women estranged from their families or seeking spiritual answers. Preaching a warped blend of apocalyptic theology, free love, and racial warfare, Manson believed he was the embodiment of Christ and Satan. Central to his ideology was a prophesized race war he called Helter Skelter, a term he stole from a Beatles song. Manson believed that the murders he orchestrated would help incite his chaos. On the night of August 8th, 1969, Manson directed several of his followers, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, to a luxurious home at 10050 Cielo Drive in Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles. Manson told them to kill everyone inside as gruesomely as you can. Inside the house was 26-year-old actress Sharon Tate, 8.5 months pregnant, along with her friends Jay Sebring, a celebrity hairstylist, Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune, Wojciech Frykowski, a Polish screenwriter, and Stephen Parent, a visitor who was killed outside in his car. What happened next was a brutal, chaotic bloodbath. Tate begged for the life of her unborn baby, but her pleas were ignored. She was stabbed 16 times. The killers left the word pig scrawled in blood on the front door, a cryptic message meant to frame black revolutionaries and hasten Manson's predicted war. Still unsatisfied, Manson personally joined the group the following night. Though he did not kill anyone himself, he directed the family to the home of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca in the Los Feliz neighborhood. The couple was bound and savagely murdered in a similarly ritualistic fashion. The words "death to pigs" and "helter skelter," misspelled, were written in blood at the scene. It took months before the LAPD made the connection between the murders. It wasn't until Susan Atkins, jailed on unrelated charges, began bragging about the killings to fellow inmates, and the web began to unravel. Arrests followed in late 1969. The trial of Charles Manson and several of his followers began in 1970 and captivated the nation. Manson carved an X into his forehead, later turning it into a swastika, and made bizarre courtroom outbursts. Despite not physically participating in the murders, Manson was convicted of first-degree murder through the legal theory of conspiracy to commit murder. Manson and several followers were sentenced to death in 1971, but their sentences were commuted to life imprisonment when California abolished the death penalty in 1972. Charles Manson remained imprisoned until his death in 2017. The Manson family murders left an indelible scar on American culture. They symbolized the dark underbelly of 1960s idealism, where peace and love turned into horror and death. Sharon Tate, once a rising Hollywood star, became an eternal symbol of senseless loss. Decades later, the story continues to haunt books, films, and collective memory. It remains a stark reminder of how one man's madness, cloaked in charisma and ideology, can turn ordinary people into instruments of terror.